sitting down, maybe in a car, standing up, positions that you would be in normal life, and just draw from there and work on your speed. Let's see here. Pootie Tang goes, with open market operations, do you think quantitative tightening is effective practice in the long run?
No, I don't think QE or QT is effective because you're simply just trading treasuries for a cash equivalent, which is a bank reserve. So I don't want to get into technical terms, but short answer, no. I don't think the Fed's balance sheet matters at all.
Okay.
Yo, what kind of name is that, bro?
Yeah, they're making
You never
jokes.
seen Pootie Tang?
Oh.
Let's keep going. Yeah,
This
troll
nigga, man.
names. Troll names. What else? Yo, Marion, you need to get an airline cargo pilot on Money Mondays. Pilot shortage is estimated to last until 2027 when an estimated 10,000 pilots needed. Pay and benefits 1 year at 6 figures.
Yep.
You know what? I think, okay, we might have a guy that I could get. That's a pilot. This guy is spitting facts. When the Fed funds rate drop, interest rates, usually an economic correction happens. Look at the Fed funds chart. It's been like that since the 1960s.
That's right.
When we started recording it.
Yep,
okay.
that's right.
Again, Tango says, you are very wise. What economical principle theory do you support, such as Keynesian, classical, Keynesian, classical
laissez-faire monetarist,
or supply side, which I believe is best, but I want to hear you out.
Yeah, I don't really subscribe to any of the schools. I mean, philosophically, I'd probably be most in line with the Austrian school, but I don't agree with a lot of the things that they say. I think that's one of my greatest attribute, or I think that's one of the biggest advantages that I've had, is that I had no training whatsoever. So I just had to use common sense, and I just had to say, okay, well, let me figure out how this works, and then come to my own conclusions. And then I read about what the Austrians say, and I say, oh, that makes sense based on how I view it, or maybe that doesn't make sense. So I don't really subscribe to any school. But again, philosophically, all about freedom, liberty, and free market capitalism.
Okay. Anything else, Bills? 2 more. Okay. And then we could go down. Was there anything else? Because I know the U.S. dollar reserve currency is a big question. Was there anything? I know you had written down a list of things you want to hit.
Oh, a ton of stuff. We could go over what I think may be good buying opportunities over the next year, if you want to. We can talk about people looking at the yield curve, but I think we probably mentioned that last time.
Yeah.
I think I just mentioned, just for people, that you want to look at not just what's happening in the United States, but globally. Japan is officially in a recession, UK in a recession, Germany in a recession. And if you go back to the 1960s, like the gentleman was saying, the UK and Germany have never been in a recession without the U.S. joining them.
Oh,
just kind of an FYI. That's how globally connected everything is.
Yeah.
And one of the arguments that you hear in the United States all the time is, well, it's impossible for us to have a recession because we've got low unemployment and the stock market is at all-time highs. But if you look at Japan, low unemployment, stock market at all-time highs.
Wow.
UK, Germany, ditto. Stock market at all-time highs, or very close to it, and low unemployment. So that doesn't mean that we're out of the woods yet.
Does that show that the rich are getting richer and the poor are just staying poor? Is that disparity just widening with those two things going on?
That's one of the you might say it's an intended consequence, but that's one of the knock-on effects for sure.
Okay.
But really, I think in today's day and age, where everyone is so hyper-focused on what the central banks are doing, I had a great conversation with my good buddy. He's Macro Alpha on Twitter, but he said, in today's world, bad news is good news until the bad news gets bad enough, and then bad news is bad news. So what he's saying is bad news is good news because, oh my gosh, that means the Fed's going to drop rates.
Yeah.
It's all about rate drops, right? Until the stuff really hits the fan, and they're like, oh my gosh, it's so bad, it doesn't even matter what the Fed's doing, it's still crashing. And that's exactly what we saw in March of 2020. It's exactly what we saw in 2008. And the reason I keep saying that is I want to be very, very clear. There are no certainties.
Of course.
All we have is a game of probabilities. So you've just got to look at all the data and say, what's your base case? Is this a 60% probability, 70%? And this is not George Gammon talking. It's just simply the yield curve. So all your viewers have to do is just watch the 2-year Treasury yield, watch the 10-year Treasury yield. Right now, the 2 years higher, that's the inversion of the curve, which almost every single time going back to 1950 has resulted in a recession.
Wow.
So you just have to watch that like a hawk. And when that 2-year Treasury yield drops under the 10-year, it's no longer inverted. That's when you usually have the problems. So
Is there
that's,
a website we can show the people real fast that displays this? Or?
yeah, you can just pull up a CNBC of each chart, or you can just go to the Fred website, which is the St. Louis Fed. If you
Can
just
type
type
that
in,
real quick, Bills, and
if you
because I
just
want to
type
give
in-
them a visual so they know.
yeah, if you just type in 10-year, 2-year, FRED, it'll show you the spread on on one chart.
10-year, 2-year, Fred.
and we'll pull it up here on screen, and George can.
Yeah, so
kinda
just
show the
watch that
audience.
like a hawk. And another timing mechanism that you can use is watch the dollar on the DXY.
Okay.
Right now it's about 103 or so. And usually what
Right
you
here?
Is that it?
there you go. Yeah, and you can go back even further
Okay.
and see. Go to up in the upper right there. It should say max. You see in the there you go. Yep.
Yeah.
So there you can see what I'm talking about.
Here we can enlarge it a little bit. Okay.
Yeah, you get that inversion, and you see when it doesn't usually hit the fan when it's still inverted. You see that?
Okay.
Because
so,
when it goes above that black line, that means it's no longer inverted. When it's below the black line, it's inverted. And then the shaded areas, guys, are recessions.
Okay. So where we are right now, 2024, we're at the where are we at here?
You're at the end.
We're right.
Yeah.
That's
we're,
right.
We're right around
And
here.
see how it's uninverting,
Yeah. It's below the black line right now.
but it's still below the black line.
Yeah.
So all you got to do is just watch that. And again, the stuff could hit the fan now, or it could never hit the fan. You don't know, but it's most likely to hit the fan after that curve is no longer
Pull it back up,
inverted.
Bills. So I guess if we're gonna keep it nice and simple for the audience, so like they should be looking at this, and when it's below the black line, what should they be focusing on from a financial standpoint?
Just be careful. You know,
Be more
if
careful.
they're in the stock market, I'm not saying sell everything
Yeah.
or sell the stock market. I'm not saying it's going to crash and all these things.
Highlight where
But
we're
just,
at right now,
just
Bills.
be careful. Be careful. Like what Kenny's doing right now in his business
Uh-huh.
is he's still looking at deals,
Uh-huh.
but he recognizes the macro implications
Okay.
and the probabilities. So he's not going out there hiring a bunch of employees. He's not getting super aggressive.
Gotcha.
He's tightening the belt. He's seeing if he has any redundancies in his staff, and if so, he's taking care of that. He's getting as efficient as possible with the payroll and all of his outgoing expenses, and then he's just going after deals that he sees a lot of upside
Okay.
because he knows that it's all about risk reward.
Okay.
And right now, that risk side of the equation is substantially larger than it would be if the curve was normal and just steep.
Gotcha. Okay.
Wow.
So if we're below, to keep it simple for the audience, if we're below that black line, guys, be wary of what you put your money into.
Yeah, and again, it's likely not hitting the fan when it's under that black line. So why is that? That's a good topic because usually what happens is the Fed is behind the curve, and the Fed will start dropping rates because of some sort of crisis or because of a recession, unemployment spiking, something like that. And the Fed dropping the front end of the curve is what makes the curve uninvert. Because remember, you've got the 2-year and you've got the 10-year.
Yeah.
Right now, the 2-year is above. That's very abnormal.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? So what happens is once we see unemployment,
Can you come closer to the mic just so they can hear you?
oh yeah,
Sorry.
once we see unemployment as an example start to go up, let's just say, or we have, let's say, the banking crisis play out. We get into inning 9 of the banking crisis because of commercial real estate, or we see something escalate in the Middle East,
Yeah.
or Taiwan, China, something
Yeah.
like that.
Ukraine, Russia. Yeah.
Yeah, and then this impacts the United States. Unemployment rate goes up. Fed comes out and says, holy cow, we got to do something. So we're going to drop interest rates from 5.25% down to, let's say, 2%.
Mhm.
And so what does that do? That makes the 2-year Treasury drop below the 10-year Treasury.
Okay.
The curve uninverts, goes above that black line. That's why the stuff usually hits the fan after that, because the result of the uninversion or the uninversion is a result of the Fed dropping rates as a response to something negative happening.
Wow. Okay. Damn. Okay. Great, man. Guys, like the goddamn video, man. That's all I can say. Whenever we bring George in, I'm always learning.
I'm learning right now.
Yeah, man. Like, sometimes I'll watch our episodes back because I'm like, oh, that was a lot of good information. So I guess we could hit anything else, Bills, before we hit the dollar
I
situation?
thought we had 2 more.
Oh, I know we each have the same amount of hours in the day, but I'm struggling to transition into making my hours the most productive. What did each of you do or didn't do to get to where you are today? I mean, bro, you just got. I hate to say it.
If you want it bad enough, bro, you're gonna make time for it.
Yeah.
Like, what's important to you?
Yeah, for me, it's all about routine.
Yeah.
It's about routine, and it's about I'm in the position where I can delegate pretty much everything. Like I've got a gal that does all my cooking and cleaning, so I don't have to worry about that stuff. That really helps out a lot. And then just making sure that I'm physically fit. So physically fit, eat well, routine, get sleep. And if you can delegate just the minutia, go ahead and do it. And that's the way that I've found I can maximize productivity.
Bam.
All right.
Top Shay goes, hello, George. How are you? What are your thoughts about bank CDs?
Shout out to Shay.
They're not too bad, but you're
What's
taking,
a bank CD?
So you're saying, all right, bank, I'm going to give you my money for a lockup period of a year.
Okay.
And so then the bank can go and do what they want. But they're putting that into play in a repo, and they're taking quite a bit of additional risk for not that much more interest.
Mm-hmm.
So what I would prefer is just a short-term T-bill, because I think you could get an even higher rate on a 1-month T-bill, and then you just don't have the counterparty risk.
Gotcha.
T-bills, okay.
All right.
Okay.
All right. And then this dude, DG Build. Okay. They deserve less. Fantastic. Hey, George, what is your opinion on seg mutual funds, insured funds? Not sure if this is offered in the U.S., where 75% of your investments are insured by the insurance companies. Pros and cons. Thanks.
Well, okay. So the problem there is now your counterparty is the insurance company. So what if the insurance company goes bust?
Yeah.
Because back in the GFC, we had AIG Insurance. You guys probably don't remember that. But they got caught up in this whole thing because they were not only involved with derivatives, but they had a lot of people were buying insurance policies just to make, let's just say, a mortgage-backed security look like it was AAA rated. So, look at this piece of toxic sludge. But look, Walter, it's AAA rated. So you should buy it. I mean, it's fully insured. Fully insured. You got nothing to worry about. Right. But then if the insurance company goes bust, well, now all of a sudden you got something to worry about.
Yeah.
So you still have got this similar type of counterparty risk within the financial system. And I would just, especially if it's with my cash position, I would just prefer to have as little risk as possible there.
Okay.
So did you want to hit anything with Taiwan and China and Ukraine before we cover the dollar thing? Or
no, that's totally. I mean, who knows where that's going to go? It's just something to think about. It's just you've got to look at everything in totality.
Yeah, when there's conflicts.
Yeah, you got to look at what's going on with the geopolitical stuff. You got to look at what's happening. Oh, by the way,
it's an election year too.
Yeah, and in China, they've had the most deflation that they've had in the last 20 or 30 years, like in decades.
Really?
So yeah, they're saying that they still have nominal GDP growth, which means they're technically not in a recession, but they're just having literal not disinflation, but deflation. And I don't know how a modern economy can have outright deflation and not be in a recession or an economic depression. So I think that China is going to be something to really watch in 2024, and that could obviously spill over into the United States. You got to ask yourself when you're looking at risk. Okay, we had a real estate problem in the United States. That's what the GFC, that was kind of the catalyst. It was really about the monetary system, but that was the catalyst to it. And that spread out throughout the entire world. Okay, well, if that can be centralized in the United States, why can't a real estate problem in China do the exact same thing? And if you understand that the interplay and the interconnectivity of the banking system that we were talking about before, you see how something happening in China can increase risk, just like Silicon Valley Bank, which makes all the U.S. banks pull back, which tightens liquidity. And now all of a sudden, people start after laying off their workers and doing all these things because they're going to the table, they're asking for more money, the banks, right? They can't get that liquidity that they could, and then that trickles through the economy, and that could be something that takes you into recession. It's just all these risks that you need to be cognizant of. I'm not saying the world's coming to an end. I'm saying don't bury your head in the sand. And that's what 99% of investors do.
Yeah. Well, you got to pay attention to the conflict because they absolutely affect the markets. Like I remember when the war first popped off with Russia and Ukraine, lumber and just house making tools